Okay, it's time to get started. Once again, good morning. Thanks for being here. And we're going to be going over our agenda for today, May 7th, and a few announcements, especially with the final exam, extra credit, STEM project. And then we're going to get to our content, which is the Physiology Chondrichthyes Shark Notes and a really cool activity called shark tracking. This is really fun. So we'll get to all of this. And so let's start with the information about the upcoming final exam. I think you were notified that final exams are optional, and that's a really good thing, right? But for some people, you might consider taking the final exam in your classes. It's optional in all classes except for math, because math has a placement for next year's classes based on how you do on the final exam and your readiness for the next class. But here in marine biology, it will be optional. It will be 50 questions, multiple choice, true and false. It will take up a half hour of the time period allotted for the semester exam. Seniors are going to take exams on May 21st and 22nd, and then other students a little bit later, the 26th to 29th. I think the schedule is posted online. And so if you're a borderline grade, that means that you're, maybe just 1 percentage point, 2 percentage points away from the next higher grade, then you might consider taking it. You will have to notify me and your other teachers. It will be part of the attendance question on May 14th and 15th. And then there's a form to fill out. Regardless of which way you're going to go on the exam, everyone will need to fill out the waiver form specifying if you're taking finals in particular classes. If you do agree to take final exams, then you live by how you perform on those. So if you were, for example, like an 81% and you took the final and did poorly on it, then you would drop down to the next lower grade. There's not a big advantage to doing that. I would only take the exam if you are a plus grade and you're trying to get that higher grade, because the final exam will only move your grade somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3%. So that's why if you're a borderline in a particular class on the plus range, I think it might be in your best interest to take the final. I will give you a final exam, like a review or study plan in the next few classes, maybe tomorrow or early next week, so that you can plan for that. But know that that's coming up. The extra credit assignment, which is accessible through our Canvas homepage, is something that you could take care of anytime now up until May 18th. So go ahead and check that out. It's a link right there, kind of in a top menu at our landing page. And the STEM project has been modified. I'm almost finished with it. It's kind of tied in with the shark tracking. So I'll have that maybe later today or posted by tomorrow. We don't have class till next Monday, but you could take a look at it. It will be an individual project for you to look at. It's nothing too time consuming. It's looking at the science and technology and tracking animals in the wild in water environments, since this is a water theme. And like I said, it's kind of inspired by the shark tracking that we'll talk about here at the end. And let's see, ask me questions in chat if you have some. And then at the end of this 15 minutes of talking about the sharks, I can get to your questions either by chat or I'll open it up to your verbal questions as well. So let's get started. It'll take me just a second to get this going. Try that again. Third time's a charm. Think I got it. There we go. So, do you have the Chondrichthyes Physiology? This is a formative at Canvas. I think you can click on the link at the agenda, or you can go to the module for fish and fill this in and turn it in after we're done. So there's a few places for you to fill in like formatives. And so let's get started. We'll be going over the physiological adaptations that sharks have that make them unique and awesome at the same time, right? They have some sensory adaptations, feeding, um, respiration, things that are different than other animals. And so they are quite special that way. And we'll be going over them here. First of all, I just looked up before we started. What is 1,000 kilograms in pounds? That's 2,200 pounds. So if you have a shark that weighs that amount out of water, that's what air weight stands for. In the ocean, it only weighs 3 kilograms. And it's 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So a 2,000 pound shark out of water weighs like 10 pounds in the water. Pretty amazing, isn't it? So he's got amazing buoyancy because of a large amount of oil inside of his cavity. In some years in this class, we are going to dissect sharks, and it's pretty interesting and fun. They When you open them up, they have a huge liver. It takes up half of their internal body cavity, and a liver is the organ in our body that is large too, up by our lungs. And its job is to filter blood, and it keeps contaminants out of the animal. And in the shark, it's filled with oil. And you know that oil will rise on top of water. Like if there's an oil spill, maybe a ship loses its oil load, and all the oil will float to the top. So when you see on the news about oil spills, they'll try to put buoys around it to contain it from spreading over the surface, and then they'll be able to clean it up. But this makes the buoyancy of the shark rise because it's in essence less dense than the water that it's in. So that's how it can weigh so much less in water. We'll see a picture of their tail. It's got a larger lobe on the top of the tail fin, and this is called a heterocircle. Hetero means different, so it's got a different shape to the top of the tail fin versus the bottom. And there's the picture. So you can see the thresher shark in the middle of this picture here, how large that is for the top lobe. And this causes the shark to have an upward lift because that's more force pushing down on the shark, but then because of its pectoral fins, then like an airplane, it just directs that upward. So it pushes downward, and then the pectoral fins are down at the ventral side of the shark. So it provides the push down toward that pectoral fin, and then the pectoral fin just allows them to glide upwards. So that also helps their buoyancy. It's called homocircle for letter E and I, like the angel shark and the Greenland shark, where it's even on the top and the bottom. So if it has a larger top lobe, then that is part of its overall buoyancy. So pretty interesting. And now moving on to their respiration. Their respiration employs three different methods. They can breathe with their muscles in their cheeks, so to speak, and they can pump water through the holes on the top side of their anterior might not be like their head, but sometimes closer to their back. And this allows them to pump water into like an in-current siphon, and then it goes out over their gills, and we'll see a picture of that. So they can do that through their mouth, pump water through their mouth, through their spiracle, or they can just swim and have water go in through their mouth without pumping, and then it goes over their gills. So it's called ventilation if they have to ram the water in through their mouth by constantly swimming. And the pictures are shown right here. So up on the top left-hand corner, this is the spherical. The spherical is the hole that is near the dorsal or backside, top side of the shark, or think of a manta ray. They they may be laying flat on the ocean, and they can pump water in through those 2 holes at the top and then out through their gill slits. So you can see the red right there. It's thin tissue filled with a lot of blood where oxygen exchange is going to happen from the water into their bloodstream, and that's how they get oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. Just like we breathe in oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide, they're doing the same thing, but through the water. So the gills are the mechanism that enable that to happen in water. So on the right-hand side, that is pumping the water through the mouth. On the left picture, it's through the mouth and through the spiracle. So that's the second way. And then the third way in the bottom picture, they have to be swimming, and they will. Actually, the top picture is when they're swimming, because on the bottom picture, you can see how they're closing their mouth to do the pumping action. So these are the three methods. Two methods of pumping water on the top left and in the bottom. And then on the top right, that is the ram ventilation where they're swimming. The shark has almost sandpaper-like skin because they have scales which are very pointy in one direction. The points go toward the tail end. So if you were petting a shark, for example, it'd be smooth to petting it from the head to the tail, but go the other way, tail to the head, and you would be hitting the spikes on these spines. And the spines are called placoid scales. This slide here shows the variation in types of scales, but sharks, rays, and skates on the top left have this pointed scale called the placoid scale. We'll go over other fish in upcoming classes, but the common type of scale is the cycloid scale. It's pretty round on the bottom left. And then the senoid scale on the bottom right is also very common in bony fish. And then there are very few that have that top right ganoid scale, but those are the four different types of scales. Now, on this slide, you need to write out the names of each of these fins. Let's start at the very top right here. The top is called the dorsal fin, and since it's toward the front of the shark, it's called the anterior dorsal fin. So right there in the top center, anterior dorsal. There's a second dorsal fin just behind that near the tail, and that one is also called a dorsal fin, but it's called the posterior dorsal fin, and it's almost always smaller than the anterior one. The tail fin here, that is called the caudal fin, C-A-U-D-A-L, caudal, C-A-U-D-A-L. Moving back around here, right underneath the tail, often not even present in many types of chondrichthyes. In certain species, it's present, and that is called the anal fin. Just like we have arms and legs, this would be the arm on the front, on the bottom front, and this would be like the feet. So these fins are also having a bony girdle. So up on our shoulders, that's called our pectoral girdle, where our arms are attached and our shoulders. And where our legs are attached, that's called our pelvis. So these names apply to the shark. Right there in the center on the underside, ventral side, this is called the pectoral, no, excuse me, pelvic fin, the pelvic fin. And then on the front, like these are where the arms would be in animals. And animals are all built similarly. This is the pectoral fin, and it has a pectoral girdle there where it's attached. And it's not labeling a fin on the front here. You could write down that those are the gills. Those slits on the side are the location where water will exit for breathing. So water goes in through the mouth or the spiracle. The spiracle is not shown, but it would be up here near the head usually. It's different spots for different sharks. Now I noticed that when I made the PDF file, it looks like the notes got covered over by the picture of the shark's teeth. So we're going to talk about the teeth, and you can just write on the slide right here a couple of things. Write down that they're specialized. You don't have to write this whole thing down here. I would write down that the shark has triangular blade teeth, as you can see in the picture. So maybe circle it and write triangular shape. It's almost like a spear. They can exert biting pressures that are extreme. And the measure of that is right here, 2,800 kilograms for every cubic centimeter. Um, you can write down 2,800 kilograms slash centimeter cubed biting pressure. You can see from this picture that there are some teeth in the front, some teeth right behind it, and maybe even a third row of teeth. So when they're biting and tearing, they're going to have a lot of teeth broken off and lost. And what happens is a conveyor belt of teeth moves forward, and now they have a new set of teeth in the front. They will never run out of teeth. They're constantly being shed and replaced. So scuba divers can go down and collect these. And it's not like the shark are ill. It's just the nature of their physiology where they will never run out of teeth because they're so important in their carnivorous eating habits. They're losing a lot of teeth. Okay, moving on to their sensory systems, which are amazing. They have a well-developed sensory system. We're going to go over a couple of things that work together. That's what it means by they act in concert. So they have two special ways, apart from just their eyes and their olfactory nose. They also have a feeling of touch that extends far beyond their body, where we actually physically have to get very close to something to feel vibrations and to feel with our nerve endings, but they're very good at it. Let's talk about their olfactory. They can detect a drop of blood that is diluted to like 1 part per billion. That's like a few drops for an entire like swimming pool. And even beyond that, they can sense for a great distance that there may be prey in the water that is easy to go after. They can follow an odor trail in a couple of ways with their olfaction. Good sense of hearing. They have something that you may not have known about called a lateral line. It's shown in this blue picture here. Running on both sides, left and right, there is a line of nerves called the lateral line, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Their visual systems are well developed during day and nighttime. They have increased vision at night. There's a special word for that, tapetum lucidum. They can protect their eye, their eye during an encounter with prey that might be fighting back, not getting poked in the eye and losing that great sense. They will put a membrane over their eye when they're in attack mode. So, in essence, they kind of close their eyes with this membrane that goes over their eye to protect it at the moment of attack. This ampullae of Lorenzini, it is special sensory nerves that are on their snout. These dots that you see in this blue picture are the tiny pores that cover their head, and these pores are filled with a jelly-like material that end in nerves, and they're able to detect electrochemical signals. They can sense the electricity that all living organisms have, from the heartbeat to the electricity that are produced in every cell during mitochondria making energy, so they can sense a living organism in the water. This picture right here gives you an idea of the range that they have with their senses. So this ampulla of determining the electricity, it is within a few centimeters. So maybe that's like a half of a foot. Their vision can go tens of meters. So every meter is 3 feet. So that's about 30 feet in the dark. So you can see that they use other senses. The lateral line that we're going to be talking a little bit more about, hundreds of meters. That's the size of a football field. That nerve that runs down the side of their bodies detects movement. So now imagine that you are on one end zone of a football field, and if you were in the water in that distance, the shark could feel you moving and splashing. And so this is how they're able to detect, like, if something is happening in their area. They can feel the vibrations in the water. Along with this, we give off an odor. So if you're swimming, you're stirring up the water, and your body odor is going in the eddy of the water, and this lateral line can pick up your odor and your movement. It's on both sides, so this gives them the ability to do 3D tracking, just like our eyes give us three-dimensional view, and able to sense left and right. That's what happens here. Their olfaction can go multiple um, football fields. Crazy, isn't it? Smelling something that far away, and then sound, it goes for miles or kilometers. All right, we're going to finish up here in about 5 minutes with their reproduction. And they have a gestation period that varies, either as eggs or they give live birth. And they have internal fertilization. The male fertilization is with these claspers. So this is how you determine a male from a female. Females wouldn't have the clasper. This is the cloaca opening. It's a common urogenital opening for all waste and the reproductive organ. And it is internal fertilization. I've got a video for you to watch when you do the shark tracking, looking at capturing a shark, and they're looking at the claspers. This is where the sperm would be, and they have a barb that sticks out, and it will like allow them to clasp onto the female, and they're stuck together for a while until fertilization is finished. A few things for you to write down on this slide. The word ovi stands for egg, and vivacious or vivi stands for live. So these are common prefixes in Latin, and a lot of words are built out of these prefixes. Oviparity is an egg layer, and viviparity is an organism that gives live birth. And there are four variations in the live birth. The live birth nutrients with a egg yolk sac, so the egg hatches inside of the mother's body, and the young are nourished by the yolk in the egg, or nourished in the uterine lining, or a placenta lining, and oddly enough, cannibalism inside of the mother. So those that are born first are going to eat some of their unfertilized eggs. They're going to eat the remainder, maybe even the ones that are smaller. So competition even at that young part of their life cycle. Here you can see the egg nourished by the yolk sac. And we'll skip through the real details here that you can see on the slide. Yolk sac viviparity, uterine viviparity, just as I mentioned. It's hard to make sense of that picture right there, but it just does define what it is. The young in each oviduct consume unfertilized eggs or other siblings. Nutrients come from a placental umbilical cord, similar to what humans have and mammals. And then this slide just talks about the different type of oviparity in different species and viviparity. About 50% live birth, nearly 50-50 for egg layers and live birth. So the last slide right here, go ahead and you can circle that word precocial right here. That means that the young are born very mature, able to take care of themselves. So that being the case, they have high survival rates because they're born with enough survival skills. And the deal with sharks is that they grow very slowly. They live a long time. They don't reach sexual maturity until a very late age, decades. And this is why it is very sad when sharks are taken out of the water just for sport, just to kill them because people think if I can kill a shark, then I'm more of a man. And it's kind of sad that way that they're also killed just for their dorsal fins. Shark fin soup is still on the menu around the world, and they leave the shark dying after cutting off just the fin. So there you go. I want to see if I can pull up a picture of the assignment that we're going to go over. I think I got it right here. The next assignment is for you to do Shark Tracker. So it's pretty self-explanatory. When you look at the explanation videos that I give you, there are 4 videos for you to watch. They're not too long, and wow, it's really fascinating. So don't skip out on those. There is an app called OSearch, search with a C like ocean. So they've combined ocean and search. And the website is osearch.org. If you type in osearch.com, it redirects you to the org. And this is what the screen looks like. Number one, you are going to click on that three line, which is the filter over on the right hand side. And then it pops up this selection that you see called the filter. And then number two, you're going to put in the name of the shark that the assignment is asking you to find. And then you can just tap outside of the filter or click the X to close out the filter. And now instead of seeing all these dots on the screen, you're going to be filtering just for the one in question. Then what you want to do is number three, tap on the little shark icon and it will bring up a menu of its tracker log. They'll say how far he's traveled, when he or she was tagged, and so on. So it's a really interesting look. It's a live look. These are satellite pings of the recorder. Once they surface, it is going to send the data up to a satellite and track these guys. So a lot is being learned about the sharks. It also has turtles, pinnipeds like seals, and alligators and whales. So this is a free source. They've made it available to everyone so that we can understand and work together as a global community to understand the life track that these guys have. What do they do? Where do they go? So it's really cool. So you'll have fun with that. Okay, that is it. I'm going to